Are you ready, kids?
Good morning, USA.
3, 2, 1. And we have liftoff.
Good morning, and Ohio gozaimasu. MC2 Michael Eckelbecker here, hanging out with you on the morning launch. Time for the Churashima Beautiful Island Culture Show. I'll be chatting with Colonel Jason Perry, the Assistant Division Commander for 3rd Marine Division, and we brought Master Sergeant Mason Bergeron, Aircrew Flight Equipment Flight Chief. And if you have not watched his story on our Facebook page, you should go do that right now, because he's got a pretty incredible story about how he ended up on Okinawa. We'll chat a little bit about that today as well. But definitely go make sure to check out that video on our Facebook page. And stay tuned. We'll be right back. Good morning. I am here with Colonel Perry and Master Sergeant Bergeron. How are you doing today?
Doing good. Thanks. Good to see you again.
Doing great. Thank you.
Good to have you back. Yeah. So what have you been up to lately?
Goodness gracious. Work. Had a little trip to Tokyo. Fortunately, it was beautiful up there. And actually, I was at a conference with Michael-san, and I think she's back out TAD, so she's not going to be able to join us today. We'll miss her, but just busy with work, and then PCS season coming up. So we got a lot of churn at work, so it's keeping us busy.
Well, we're definitely going to miss Maiko-san for the show today, but I think it's going to be a pretty cool show to have two guys here with such a unique perspective on Japanese and Okinawan culture, and just the way that you both have immerse yourself into the local culture is I can't think of two people beyond like what the two of you have experienced. So, Master Sergeant, for those who are listening who haven't seen the story, can you kind of just briefly summarize how you ended up on Okinawa?
Yeah, sure. So we were just talking about this. I was a kid growing up in Minnesota, really small town, and for some reason I was just begging my parents to let me start karate, and they didn't know why. Nobody really understood why. It was just for some reason, maybe I'd seen it on TV or who knows, but I was like, I want to do karate. I
mean, there was this movie, if that influenced you at all, you might have heard of it. Karate Kid? Did that maybe have anything to do with it?
That was 1984, I believe, so that's very possible. I'd seen that movie and maybe that stuck with me. But anyway, I kept begging them, let me do karate, and it took a lot of begging for them to eventually give in and put me in this karate class. They were trying to put me in basketball and football, and it just wasn't sticking. I wanted to do karate. So eventually I got my way, and I was learning from there were only like 2 classes at the time in the area. And I started in a Taekwondo class and did it for a little while, and I enjoyed it. But as I would dig deeper and look into like karate books and history, I found out that there was this thing called Okinawan karate, which was the original of what I wanted to do. And we found an Okinawan karate class. And I went, and the teacher told me that he was stationed in Okinawa in the 1960s. He was security forces, and I stuck with it. I started going 3 days a week. I would listen to his stories about training in Okinawa, and it just became kind of a dream to me to end up in Okinawa one day. And as I got older, I started making plans to make that happen, and eventually went to an Air Force recruiter, and the rest is history.
So you joined the Air Force just to end up out here.
I'm that guy.
That's incredible. I think that's so awesome. But it ended up not being, you kind of expected it to be your first station when you joined in, right?
Yeah, I ended up.
Or that was the hope, I guess.
After my first teacher died, I traveled to California, where I met Shinjo Sensei, who is my teacher now. And he's here in Okinawa, of course. And I met him at this seminar, and there were all these other karate people that had been training for years, and many of them had visited Okinawa in the past. So they're all talking about their old stories of Okinawa, and I'm just sitting there listening, taking it all in. And when I got a chance to speak, I said, how can a 20-year-old guy like me that doesn't speak Japanese go there and live there? And one of the guys goes, why don't you join the Air Force? And I immediately was like, they can get me to Okinawa? And he goes, yeah, they got it pretty good over there. So as soon as that seminar was over, I went to the recruiter and, hey, can you send me to Okinawa? And he said, yeah.
I feel like I'm feeling like karate might be a untapped recruiting tool.
Yeah.
In that case, anyway, it sure was.
That's awesome. Well, it's really great to have you here and to see that you've gotten to live out that dream. Tell me a little bit about this book that you brought with you today, actually.
Okay, yeah. So this is the history book of Uechiru Kenyukai, which is our school of karate. And in 1995, the first version of this book was released by Alan Dollar, who is now a very good friend and mentor to me. But he released this book about the history and all the masters of our karate style. And I bought the first copy that I could of this book. It was $50 at the time. And that book went with me everywhere for the next 10, 15-ish years. Had coffee stains all over it. The binding was falling apart, duct taped together. But I knew everything about that book and the people in it. Then in 2015, after my time in Okinawa, my first assignment, I was stationed in Minot, North Dakota, but I would still come back here every month. I'd burn all 30 days of my leave back in Okinawa. And the author contacted me and he said, hey, I'm going to make a second release of this book because a lot has happened since 1995. So he asked me for some pictures and updates on Okinawan history and the masters and everything like that. So I would provide him all this information, and when he released the book, sure enough, in the middle of the book, there's this article about me and a picture of myself in the book. So it's just, it shows that if you stick with your dreams and you do everything it takes to get them, you might be in the history book one day.
I can't imagine how. What did you feel when you opened up the book and you saw your picture in there?
It doesn't seem real. Still doesn't seem real. Like
Yeah.
I go through this book, refreshing myself on the history, and it's like, oh, there's me.
That's pretty cool. That's incredible. Well, it's pretty awesome to have a piece of karate history here with us today.
Yeah.
So, and that's not the only aspect of Okinawan culture that you've immersed yourself in. I see you brought with you your Sanshin today.
I sure did, yeah. So if you spend any time in Okinawa at all, you've heard this sound. And a lot of people consider this to be the soul of Okinawa. It's called the Sanshin. So you probably gathered, originally I came here just for the sole purpose of karate.
Mm-hmm.
I came here just thinking, all I'm going to do is go to the dojo. I'll work, go home, go to the dojo, go home, just repeat every day. So the first couple years, it was exactly that. It was just karate training. But eventually, the more that I trained, the more time that I spent with the Okinawans, and eventually it wasn't just in the dojo. They'd invite me over to their house, we'd go out to dinner, they'd invite me to family events with them, and I started to pick up that all of these people had a Sanshin in their house, and a lot of them knew how to play it.
Absolutely.
And they would sort of, like when they're having a fun time or something like that, they'll pick up a Sanshin and start playing. And at first I was I'm a guitar player, I've been playing guitar most of my life as well. So at first I was like, what's that funny instrument? Because it's not like anything that we see in the States. But eventually it kind of grew on me, and I realized this is also part of the culture, just like karate, and just as important as karate. So at some point, I don't remember what it was that actually just clicked with me, but I asked one of the senseis from our dojo if I could possibly learn. And he straight up laughed at me. Like, no kidding, he laughed. And he said, you want to learn Sanshin? I said, yeah, I'd love to. So he started taking me to his sensei, his Sanshin sensei, and just like a karate dojo, we all gathered in one place at a certain time every night, and we would sit around and basically you follow the instructor. He'll play and you follow along. And I was like, I don't speak Japanese. Like, how do I do this? And he goes, just listen. And eventually I did. Like, I started to memorize it. So I did that for a while. Then he took me out to Urasoe to buy my very first Sanshin. He picked one out for me, and I bought it, and I just kept playing. And later I got more serious about it. At first it was sort of just a piece that would sit in my living room, and but eventually I got pretty into it, and I became a regular student of that Sanshin school. And I'm still playing today, so.
Literally today, we just heard you. Yeah. Wow, that's incredible. So, what is it about Okinawan culture specifically that attracts you? Is there anything that you can kind of quantify, or is it just sort of this ethereal thing that you can't really put a finger on?
A little bit of both, but like I said, I came initially just for karate. It started with that. Then it spread into, wow, these people are great. The people are so respectful, and their culture has so much to offer, and I'm constantly learning things from the Okinawan people. And then like that led to Sanshin. Sanshin led to Kobudo, which is another martial art. And it's kind of like this endless path that just you keep on, oh, well, that's cool too. Let me learn about that. And one thing leads to another, and it hasn't stopped yet. Like, I'm still.
I think that's the thing. So first of all, we've never met until today.
Right.
I actually, through a mutual friend, I was looking for somebody to help us with the commercial. I needed a Sanshin player, and I was actually talking to another karate teacher, Okinawan, down in Urasoe, who was going to help us out, but it was going to take a little bit of logistics to get him up here. And a mutual friend of ours said, hey, you might want to contact this guy, Mason Bergeron. He's in the Air Force. And so I just kind of cold called the Mass Sergeant here, and he said, yeah, happy to do it. But I think so we've never met or anything, but here in the discussion, I think the thing about the culture is that it's all the manifestation of the culture that it's like you start doing one thing and then you realize, wait a minute, but that's connected to this, and you just continue to follow a thread, and next thing you know, you're interested in the whole thing. If you have that level of curiosity, it's kind of fun. So it's just this endless discovery almost is what I think.
That's exactly right.
Yeah,
exactly.
Sort of a snowball effect.
It really is. You start off innocent enough, just wanting to, throw a punch or a kick, and next thing you know, you're going to every castle in Okinawa and dragging your kids with you. That's my story. So
I think we've talked about this quite a bit with so much symbolism in Japanese and Okinawan culture, and so much tradition behind just about everything that they do.
Mm-hmm.
Everything really is connected in one way or another. So it's easy, I think, to get kind of caught up in that and follow that, like you said, that trail of breadcrumbs, and just sort of get lost in it.
Yeah. You start to enjoy just the little discoveries, and and then you want to enjoy, and then you want to discover a little bit more, experience a little bit more, not just look at it, but you want to dive in and kind of experience it, and next thing you know, you're at Urasoe buying a Sanshin, or knocking on a dojo door, or going to an ASA club, or whatever the activity is, and then you realize that it's all connected to the society itself. It's just not a hobby you do; it's part of the people, and it just goes from there.
So I understand that with karate, there's a rank structure, right?
Yes.
Some sort of rank structure. So what exactly, I guess, what rank would the two of you be in the Okinawan karate?
Do you want me to go first?
Sure, you go first.
So when under my first teacher, Uechiru Karate, which we both do Okinawan karate, but they're different styles of Okinawan karate. So I ended up getting my first degree black belt, which is called Shodan, from my first teacher in Minnesota. Just before I joined the Air Force, I was tested for Nidan, second degree black belt. Then later, after I was in Okinawa, I tested for third degree, eventually fourth degree. Then after I was assigned to Minot, North Dakota, after my 6 years in Okinawa, I came back one time for leave, 2015, 16, and I was tested for Godan, fifth degree black belt. And then shortly after was presented with Shihan, master instructor certification from Shinjo Sensei. But while I was in Arizona waiting, I forgot to mention that, but before coming to Okinawa, they sent me to Phoenix, Arizona, Luke Air Force Base. Much to my surprise. I thought I was going straight to Okinawa, right? So while I was there, I could not find a Uechiru or even Okinawan karate school. So I eventually found this Japanese jiu-jitsu school, which was very old school. And that ended up taking up my time, 5 years in Arizona, while I was waiting to come to Okinawa. So I was eventually promoted to Nidan in Japanese Jiu-Jitsu. Then after I learned Sanshin here, like I mentioned, I picked up Ryukyu Kobudo, which is another martial art, using the Okinawan traditional weapons, and I'm currently a fourth degree black belt in Ryukyu Kobudo as well.
Wow. Okay. And what about you, sir?
It's impressive. And is there ranking in Sanshin as well?
There is, yes.
Yeah,
that's cool. So just like everything.
My thunder, sir.
Yeah, it's all. Oh, is that right? Sorry, I stepped on the guy in charge here.
So what degree black belt are you?
So in Okinawa karate, Nanadan, so seventh dan. But I'm considerably older than the master sergeant here, so I've just been around longer.
How high does it go?
Judan, 10th dan. Shinjo Sensei is a Judan, right?
So Shinjo Sensei is Kyudan, 9th dan.
Okay.
So in my style, the highest that I could ever go would be 8th dan.
Okay.
You can go one lower than the head of the style.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I see.
So like my teacher's a Judan, 10th dan, his Kyudan. So a lot of the most senior instructors here are 9th or 10th.
Okay.
Dan. So I'm a Nanadan in karate, which is empty hand, right? And so Master Sergeant does a style called Uechi-ryu, and I do a style called Shorin-ryu. They're very similar in a lot of ways, but when you look at them they're a little different. And then in Kobudo, which again is the weapon system, different weapon system of but the same weapons, just different way of packaging it, I guess. So I'm a Godan in that. And then when I lived in Tokyo, I had the opportunity to train in the Kodokan judo schools, and so Shodan, just a first degree black belt in judo as well. So
got it. Okay, so Master Sergeant, for Sanshin, you said that there is a rank structure for that as well. So what rank would you fall in for Sanshin right now?
Yeah, so like most things in Okinawa, everything is very structured and done in a certain way. In the States, I think I had my parents buy me a guitar for a birthday present. I bought a book and I learned some chords, sat in a bedroom and taught myself. Whereas here in Okinawa, you're supposed to go to a Sanshin sensei or a Sanshin teacher, request to be their student, and if they accept you, then you go to them, however often they think is necessary. You learn the certain material, and then when they think you're ready, just like karate, they'll say, I think you're ready to be promoted. There's a test happening next month, and you go and you have to learn this material like exact, very, very precise. And you play in front of a panel of judges, and they all decide whether you pass or not. And I would be considered, I guess, a Nidan, second degree black belt in Sanshin.
Okay, very cool. All right, so both of these guys have clearly developed into the Okinawan and Japanese culture over a lot of experience, or through a lot of experience. But there are obviously growing pains along the way. Anybody who's developed any skill this far knows that there are missteps that happen. So we're going to get into that in just a little bit. Stay tuned. We're going to take a quick music break. We'll be right back. All right, so I think that one thing that can sort of deter people from trying to learn new things, especially when it comes to delving into a whole new culture, is the fear of looking silly or being embarrassed by not doing something correctly. But we kind of discussed this a little bit before the show started. Those can make for some of the funniest stories and some of the best stories and
absolutely.
the best learning experiences.
Yeah.
So having come so far in karate and Sanshin and learning the language, I'm sure that you both have some stories of missteps along the way that may have been embarrassing in the moment, but you look back on now fondly and laugh. So let's dig into some of those stories.
Okay.
Where do you want to start, sir? What kind of stories you got for us?
Well, yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. I think sometimes, maybe being in Okinawa is a little bit of a disadvantage because you can almost, it's easy to go to the security of the base and maybe not reach out into and do those uncomfortable things. But they really are great stories. So when I first came to Japan, I was 19 years old. This was 1989, and I landed in Nagoya, Japan, and a couple of people there. We had some mentors there with us, and Japanese fellows about my age. And it was Friday night, and they're like, it's Sento night. The Sento, most of us know what an onsen is, which is a natural hot spring. But in Japan, all over, they have little neighborhood Sentos, or public baths. And I'm, 19-year-old young man out of North Carolina, and so that's what we did. We all loaded up, went in Rome, and we went to the Sento, the public bath. My first time ever going to a public bath and bathing with other strangers. So it was a little interesting for me. I was a little uncomfortable with the whole idea of it. But they showed me how to do it. You go in, you wash yourself off, and give you a little towel that's about yay big, and you're a little uncomfortable with the whole thing. And so it got kind of interesting. I got all bathed off, and I'm in there now. If you go into a lot of times, these places will have multiple different tubs, bath pools, if you will. And in this one, there was probably 3 or 4 pools, sauna and whatnot. And so I get all ready to get in one of those pools, and I look, and there's this large pool in the middle of the Sento, and it had like 5 or 6 guys in there, and I was really not comfortable with sitting on my little towel going, I'm not really sure I'm on board with this, And then right beside this pool with all these Japanese guys was a pool, a little smaller but completely empty, And I thought, am I the only one here that doesn't see this? I'm getting in the empty pool, and it made sense to me at the time anyway. So without a moment's hesitation, I step right into this pool. It came up probably deep as up to my thigh or so, and next thing you know, I felt like my entire body was seizing up on me. My muscles cringed like this, and I felt like I was seizing up. My calf muscles just completely seized up. I let out a yelp, came jumping out of the pool, and really kind of still not really sure what had happened. Well, come to find out, I had jumped in with both feet, literally, into the denki pool. Well, denki in Japanese means electricity. So here I had jumped right into the electrical pool, and this is a true story. It's a big tub of water with an electrical current running through it. And if you don't know that you're getting into a pool of water with an electrical current, and it'll wake you up. So anyway, here I am. I let out the quite ungracefully exited the pool, and then proceeded over to this pool that I was previously kind of hesitant to get in. Sumimasen, chotto onegaishimasu. I think I'll join you. So anyway, that was. That was my first Sento trip, and if you haven't had the experience, I'd definitely encourage you to get out there and experience something like that.
I imagine some of the guys in the other tub got a pretty good laugh out of that.
Yeah, it was quite the spectacle there. Just kind of sat in the corner and kind of you just got to laugh those things off. But if you're willing to get out and try it, it's a lot of fun.
So what is the purpose of an electrical?
I was just going to ask that same question.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's interesting. Most of the times when I've seen him, I haven't seen him recently, but mainly I see labor workers who have like a physical labor type of job, generally older gentlemen, and they'll get in there and they'll sit right up against that electrode where it's just the strongest. But what it does, it's almost like a TENS unit.
Yeah.
It tightens your muscles and then it just relaxes them and tightens them and relaxes them. There's often a pulsing sensation in it. It's really kind of odd, and you do get used to it eventually. Like I'll get in a denki pool now. But and then when you get out, it's kind of like your muscles are completely just they've been tensed, and then they just kind of relax. So yeah, that's the purpose of it.
That makes sense. I can understand that because I've used a TENS unit before, and they can be pretty great if you got a knot in your back. But I can't imagine everything from
it was
mid chest down.
Day four in Japan, no idea what was going on, and it's just hey, go figure it out.
All right, so Master. Have you started to pick up on the language a bit, or started to learn the language more? Because I know you mentioned earlier on you didn't speak Japanese.
That also seems to be kind of an endless journey for me. I figured I would pick it up in a year. Here I am 12 years later, still picking it up. I can definitely have conversations. I study katakana and hiragana. Not a clue about kanji yet. I figure maybe I'll pick that up after I retire. But I can have conversations probably at a second grade level.
Okay, so I have to imagine that being so immersed in the culture but not really speaking the language super fluently, that could probably have led to some misunderstandings and some funny situations.
Right. Yeah, so one of my first stories, this is kind of funny, but it's also really cool, and it stuck with me. I arrived here at about 10 p.m. off the rotator, Kadena Air Base, 2008. And the next morning, I was going to find the dojo. So I think I borrowed a buddy's car or something like that, and I'm driving in the direction that I think the dojo is at. And somebody had told me it's by this red bridge. You'll see this red bridge in Yomitan.
Hijabashi.
Right. So I get to this red bridge, and I keep going straight. You can either veer off left or go straight. And I decide to keep going straight, and I come to, like, this area that, like, I just feel lost. So I pull over, and I see this guy that's sweeping his driveway, this Okinawan guy. And I pull over, and I roll down the window, and not a word of Japanese at that time. Just, excuse me, can you tell me where the Shinjo dojo is? And this guy doesn't speak a word of English, so he looks at me, and I repeat myself a couple times, and I'm saying, karate, weichiru karate. And he still doesn't know what I'm saying, so he comes over by the driver's side of my car, and he's asking if he can get in. So I'm like, sure. So I get in the passenger seat. This is my first real day in Okinawa. Yeah.
Perfect stranger. Yeah.
So I get over in the passenger seat. He jumps in the driver's seat, and he drives me to, I don't know where we're going. I figure we're going to the dojo. And he drives me to the Kadena Information Center. And he gets out, tells me to wait, and he goes inside and he's asking people, how do we get to the Shinjo dojo? And he comes back and jumps in the car and he drives me to the dojo. And I'm like, this is it. And he gets out and he's going to walk home. And I'm like, I can take you home. And he's like, it's okay. Daijoubu, daijoubu. So he got me to this dojo, went completely out of his way, literally stopped what he was doing.
Wow.
Found out how to get this gaijin to the dojo, dropped me off, and then he walked home. And
That's
I was just
incredible.
like, who are these people? This is amazing.
That's a good way to wrap you up in the culture right away.
Yeah, that was probably the first Okinawan person that I spoke to in Okinawa.
Wow. That's incredible.
Wow.
That's really cool.
Yeah, I think you hear about stuff like that all the time, and I think most of the time, I guess what everybody ought to understand is that the level of appreciation for just the try,
Yes.
is higher than we could imagine. I think in the United States we probably are less sensitive to that because, our country is made up of people from all over the world, right? There's no, it's not unusual to have people who have backgrounds from any continent at any given time that you interact with. But here, I think they see that when you're not from Japan, you're clearly not from Japan. But if you're willing to try, boy, they really show a lot of appreciation and are quite forgiving of us and our missteps sometimes. My daughter, when we lived in Tokyo, her favorite thing was to go to Family Mart. Right. When I got orders here, my youngest daughter she had one question, and that was, do they have onigiri? Two questions. Do you have onigiri in Okinawa? Does she remember that from Tokyo? And I said, yeah. And then she said, do they have Family Mart? I said, well, yeah, they got Family Mart in Okinawa. And she was in. That's all it took. She was in. Right. Well, my daughter, she was in high school, and she loved to go to Family Mart, and she'd always order the chicken, that you can order the hot. They have prepared, chicken fillets or whatever, and they'll stick it in a little bag for you and eat it. And she loved them. She loved the spicy chicken, breaded chicken fillet type thing. Mm-hmm. And I was in there with her one time. We'd probably been in Japan for about a year now, and they're pretty comfortable ordering and stuff like that. And so I'm just standing there, and my daughter goes up to the register, just like she'd done 100 times, and she ordered the spicy chicken. Well, and of course a lot of times you know that in Japanese chicken is chikin. You can kind of say it with a Japanese accent, but chicken, you could say chikin, you could say chicken, you could say chikan, and so, but chikin is the key sound is what's interesting. Chikin. So she went up and she said, I'd like a spicy chicken, right? Spicy chicken, onegaishimasu. Okay. Well, chicken in Japanese actually means like a stalker or a pervert type. No. So for the last year, she's been walking up to the teller at the Family Mart saying, "I'd like a spicy chicken, please."
Oh, no.
And you look at the face, the look on the face of the teller, and they're trying to process all of this. There's this young lady asking for a spicy
stalker,
spicy stalker, flasher, pervert, whatever you want to say, and then of course she's looking at the thing, and she goes, "Oh, spicy chicken," and they're so forgiving because instead of laughing at her or anything, they just go over and grab it and put it in the box and in charge of the money or whatnot, but. I still get a kick out of that. I was just in absolute shock. My daughter's asking for a spicy chicken right there, but anyway, it turned into a pretty good story.
Oh man, that's hilarious. I've got another story from my first time visiting Japan. Yeah. I kind of got stuck in Yokota Air Base on my way back from leave when I was stationed on Diego Garcia. And I didn't have a lot of money because I was coming off of leave and going back to Diego Garcia. And pretty much everything, if you're E4 or below on Diego Garcia, is free or covered, So I was like, I'll just enjoy myself on leave. I don't need to have a lot of extra money in the bank when I get home. And I ended up getting stuck in Yokota for like 4 days because I think it was somebody on the flight was sick, so they had to ground it. And then they didn't fly on the weekend, so it was grounded for the weekend. I didn't have like any money, and I had enough to like cover my hotel and meals, and that was pretty much it. So I would just get on the train and ride out to different stops, get off and people watch and just walk around. And then one day I just walked off base and just walked for like a couple of hours. And I ended up at this one of the fitness parks, and there was a guy there who was exercising. And so I started doing like similar. He was doing like body weight type workouts. So I started doing similar workouts. He was doing pull-ups, so I started doing muscle-ups, and then he started doing muscle-ups, and he started doing like clapping muscle-ups and stuff. So we just kind of kept one-upping each other, right? Until we got to the point where like neither of us could one-up each other anymore. We both kind of fell and just ended up laughing and like bowing and saying goodbye. But neither of us, he didn't seem to speak any English. I didn't speak any Japanese at the time. Right. And we just had this funny interaction together, and at the end laughed it off, bowed at each other, and went our separate ways. And I thought it was just such a cool experience that'll always stick with me.
Yeah. Absolutely. I do think, and we talked about this on the show a few months ago, I think, but in Okinawa, we talked about the phrase "ichariba chode," which means ichariba is like if we meet, or when we meet, if we meet. Chode means we are brothers, or so it kind of if once we meet we are brothers. Once we meet, we're friends for life, kind of thing. And I think you see that quite a bit in Okinawa, but also throughout Japan. I think so. It's kind of it's always fun to have those little experiences. That's cool.
Yeah.
Got any other funny stories you want to bring up?
One more to kind of piggyback onto the one I just told previously, but when I finally did get to the dojo, it may have been that same exact trip, or else shortly after. I got there and they were having a going away party, or they always call it a sayonara party, for visiting Americans that would come and train at the dojo. And then just before they leave, they would throw this huge party. I mean, they usually go nuts with it. They buy tons of sushi and just do this huge thing for these guys that are visiting. So I get to the dojo and there's just cars everywhere and there's no place for me to park this car. So Shinjo Sensei is there and I said, "Where should I park?" And he sends one of his young students, teenager, probably like 17, 18 years old, and sends him over to me, and he doesn't speak a word of English. So he jumps in the passenger seat. And I said, "Where should I park?" And he goes, "Park." And I said, "Yeah, where?" And he goes, "Okay, like this way." And he points, so I'm driving. And we end up driving around like one block, and then another block, and another block, and we're getting farther and farther away from the dojo. And I'm seeing plenty of places to park. And I'm thinking, like, where are we going? And we finally arrive at a koen.
Toguchi Park, probably.
Yep. Yeah. And he says, "Okay, here." And I said, "Here? This is where we're going to park?" And he goes, "Here, park." He brought me to the closest park to the dojo. And we looked at each other like, I don't know what's happening.
We're clearly not communicating here.
I ended up calling my senpai at the dojo, and I said, "Hey, we're at a park really far away from the dojo right now." And he says, "Put Mitsukuni on the phone." So I put him on the phone, and they explain it, and he just starts cracking up. And then we realized, like, he brought me to a park, not to a parking spot.
That was funny.
Good times. We still joke around about that when I see him.
Nice. That's funny, yeah. I think that going back on the appreciation for learning the language, that's something I'm trying to adapt into my own life. Because, like you said, coming from America, we really don't think we notice it when people try to learn the language.
It's kind of expected,
yeah,
right?
exactly. Like if somebody speaks a little bit of English because they came to America for a vacation or something, like okay, cool, they learned a little bit of English. But,
right.
I think that there are a lot of places that you go in the world, if you put effort into learning their language, they really appreciate it. Yeah. And that's something I'm trying to adapt myself to. If I go to the Family Mart or to get some curry at the and the waiter or waitress speaks a little bit of English to me, I'm trying to be better about like complimenting them on their English, or being more appreciative of the fact that they are trying to communicate with me in a language that I'm more comfortable with.
Right. Absolutely.
That's a great point. Like in the States, when we see people that don't speak English fluently, we're kind of like, hey, like, why don't you speak English? Mm-hmm. Whereas here, it's almost like many of the Americans are expecting the Japanese to speak English for them.
Right.
Which is completely opposite. It shouldn't be that way. But you do see the Japanese going out of their way to try to speak English to us, which is really, really amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I think that having started to try to pick up a little bit of language, I've tried to learn a few phrases and things, and just realizing how difficult that can be, and to have somebody working at a restaurant, or again, as an example, like speak English to me in a way that I can comprehend exactly what they're trying to tell me, is pretty impressive.
Yeah.
I'm like, man, I've been trying to remember how to say chotomate kudasai for like 3 weeks now, and I forget it every time I need it. So
I guess what I would say though is, if you have any hesitation, especially now, and if you're vaccinated, a lot of I think for most of us things have are opening up, opportunities are opening up for us, and we still need to be, cautious, and we need to make sure we're following all the safeguards. But for vaccinated folks, things are becoming a little more available to us. And so if you have a hesitation about, things might not go well, or I don't know exactly where I'm supposed to go, get over that, because just enjoy the experiences. Because even though it might not go as well as you planned, you'll probably come out the back end having a pretty interesting experience, and having fun along the way. If you let the experience itself be be the fun you're looking for, because there's some good experiences to have out there.
Yeah, learn to love the process.
Yeah, that's right.
So we're down to our last 10 minutes now. So let's get from each of you your number one tip on how to get involved with the local community. That's a lot.
First?
That's a lot to think about.
Yeah, that's
interesting.
interesting.
A hardball, but
yeah.
So I recently sponsored a family that they just came in, and it's a family of 5, and they've never experienced Japan before. They completely were like, we would love to get this experience, but we don't know anything about it. And so they're all settled in now and everything, but we kind of asked them, like, so have you gone out at all yet? Have you experienced any of the restaurants or things to do? And one of them said, we've tried. We get to like a restaurant with like no English sign or anything like that, and we want to go in, but we're always just intimidated, and we end up turning around and going to McDonald's. And trust me, they're not the only ones. Like, the Americans tend to go to places with an English sign. So I would just probably recommend go inside.
avoid English signs even, maybe.
Well, yeah, but when you see a sign that it's a restaurant or it's what you want to go to, but it's not in English, just go inside and maybe have a couple words picked out, so that, like Colonel said, if you go in there and you show that you're trying to speak their language, just the fact that you're trying they're going to go a long ways to help you. So just go inside and try and see what happens.
I feel bad for picky eaters. That can be that's a very, like, it's scary enough just not knowing the language, but being a picky eater, that can be pretty intimidating.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's you never know. Sometimes you're gonna be surprised. Maybe don't order the most expensive thing on the menu if you don't think you're gonna like it, but try something new.
Yeah.
I think in a lot of ways there's a lot of opportunities, I think, to get out there. If the communities host things on a regular basis, if you take a chance, go to a local kominkan, which is just a local community center, see what's going on. And you can if you have an interest, there's probably something out in town that supports that interest, and maybe just go give it a shot. Might take a little bit of digging, might result in some uncomfortable conversations where you're kind of sorting through things, but whether it's a service project or whether it's learning how to play Sanshin or take a little ASA class, just get out there and experience some of those things and see what you like, and don't let the unknown deter you, because it's all unknowns, right? So it's a pretty forgiving place if you're interested and willing to put in a little bit of effort there. So
if you're firmly inside your comfort zone, you're not growing.
Yeah, that's right. Appreciate the Sanshin. That was interesting.
Yeah, I think so. And it's also like, I think if you're here and you're here for 3-4 years, I recommend try to learn a little bit of the basic sort of like polite words to say, and then go from there, and people will open doors. That'll open doors for you. But like with the Sanshin, I walked in there the first time not really speaking any Japanese at all, trying to learn to sing in Japanese. And now I can sing in Japanese, but I never would have got to that point if I wouldn't have just walked in, and they would tell me, my teacher and senpai, they would tell me, like, just keep going. And I'm like, I've heard that in karate. Just keep going. So if you try it once, don't be completely deterred that, wow, that didn't really go as well as I thought it would. Just keep going and give it a shot.
All right. Well, gentlemen, thank you both so much for your great stories, for your great advice. Really appreciate it. It was awesome talking to you both today.
It was
really,
fun.
Yeah, it was really great to get to meet you, Master Sergeant. Do you want to play us out?
Yeah, sure.
Cool.
Let's do that.
All
What
right.
are you going to play?
Let's do a little Asadoya Yunta. Everybody
Okay.
knows Asadoya Yunta. Here we go.
All right, and a big thank you to everybody who tuned in today. We really appreciate it. That about wraps things up for our Churashima Beautiful Island Culture Show. You can catch the whole thing later on our Facebook page, facebook.com/Wave89, our Instagram @AFNWave89, and on our YouTube channel under AFN Okinawa. And make sure to tune in on the second Thursday of each month at 7 for more Churashima culture. Thank you both. We'll see you next
That was
time.
fun. Thanks.
You're listening to Eagle on Wave 89, serving America's best.